Okay, happy weekend. Now, this is not an IAM review. This is more of a help video for people, especially if you're just starting off in this hobby. And one of the things that I realized was, I talk about different sources and tips and cables, but I don't actually talk about why I do what I do. So here is a little mini guide. The Monk's Guide to Stuff. Now, here's my process when I get stuff in. I do a quick listen with whatever it came with in the box. A lot of times we're sharing this between Canucks Audioholics, so we don't actually share the box or the packaging. Or just one of us would have gotten something and we put it in a case and send it away with probably the stock cable, and away you go. And typically not the stock tips either. And I'll explain why. So that's kind of how the process starts, and then you'll get an IM. Like for me right now, KD shared his The-Audio Hype 10. And so first thing that I do is I take a quick listen on El Stocco cable. And then I choose EARTIPS. Now let's get into EARTIPS. So this first section will be EARTIPS, and they are the most important that you can do. Now, in your journey, you are going to not want to rely on what comes in the box, because most of the time they're free or don't have a lot of thought process that went into it. And there's definitely exceptions there, especially as you climb up the ladder in price. So you want to have your tips. Now for me, I use two little boxes. We got a store out here called Princess Auto. It's perfect. It's not for just princesses, don't worry. So I categorize my tips. So all my faves are in this box. I don't know why I put it in one with a sticker. I'll have to transfer. Damn it. It's a lot of work. Now, in this little box is my favorites that I've accrued over the time I've been doing this. Now, a couple of the favorites that I pull out of a lot of the boxes, there is this, I take a 13.3 mil. That's my favorite in my ears. One slightly different than the other, but they seem to work just okay. And here's a little thing that there's a good chance that your ears aren't going to be the same, right? I know for me, just like my ears, there's one slightly different size, and that's normal. It's okay. No body shaming here, okay? So that's allowable. And you might need a medium large in one, and you might need a large, or you might, you know what I mean? You might need a different size. I'm okay. So there we go. Now, these happens to be, what are they? The BGVPW07, and there's a bunch of these under different names that are very similar. These have a quite hard center, so it keeps the shape very nicely. And it's a little bit thicker on the outside. So what I typically find with tips, let's talk tips 101. So in this case, there is typically mostly wide bore tips. Okay, so what I have found in tips is that the narrower the bore, let's pull up another one that I'm going to recommend you pick up as your staple. So this is the Final Audio E-Tips. Now, they're kind of round and they have a fairly small little hole, and that's the bore, right? So pick up a set of those, will help you on your journey. The other one that I really like that I found is these Dunu. They're kind of like this green with these orange on the inside. And they work very much like a spin fit. So they actually have this little thing where it can actually angle. So if you get it into your ear and the nozzle isn't quite right, it can still angle up to the right angle and give you very good seal contact as well. So those are, for me, you're going to want a selection of tips. So for me, wide bore opens up the stage. It allows all of the high frequencies to come through, and it doesn't overemphasize the bass. Now, what I find is as you reduce the bore size, it does exactly that, where it is starting to compress where the highs go through, and then you get a de-emphasis on the highs and upper mids, and it depends on the bore. So if you picked up and you had a really bright IM, well, you might want to choose a very narrow bore tip to start off with in your selection, and play with it that way. Okay, so fitment for ear tips is paramount. You want to make sure that it is a good fitment for you, first of all. Now, this is the tricky part about IMs, and if you heard me talk about nozzles and nozzle angle. So a lot of times, here's the impact. So impact is got a really short nozzle, and it just happens to be angled back, which is nice. Now, there's some that have short nozzles, but they're angled out. So when they're in your ear, they're fighting to not actually get up and in. They're fighting to get up and out. And that's where you're going to have fitment issues. And so then you might want to choose a tip. So this is an Osla regular long, where the actual nozzle is long, not nozzle, the whatever the hell you call it in the inside is longer, protrudes past. It makes it a longer ear tip. Wow, that was so difficult, wasn't it? And so it makes it a little bit longer to get up and into your ear. So it's going to do a bunch of things for stage. So not only are you going to be able to control your highs, mids, and bass, you are also going to control your stage as well. Now, some of the other ones that I recommend that you hear me talk about in my video. So let's talk about Osla for a second for me. So I have those regular long ones in black, and then this kind of clear. And they're the outside is very thick. So when it makes a seal in my ear, it gives me all the bass. Now, most of the time, if the nozzle's a little bit longer, I like using the Osla crystal tips. They're not quite as sticky as the other ones. What are they called? Osla elastics. There you go. But I find I get an amazing seal. And this tip for me adds all of the bass and doesn't de-emphasize any treble, and very nice mids. It's a really nice tip. It's not cheap though. Second to that is another Osla, and these ones have a blue inside, and again, it might be different from different companies. There it is. These ones. I got a bunch of these. And again, another Osla, and these are shorts. Now, these are the Osla shorts. And again, wide bore. I use these a lot. Some of the other ones that I'm going to recommend to you are the Whizzer Easy Tips SS20. Again, not cheap tips. Doesn't matter if you get the clear or the smoky gray ones. But they are really short. So if you had a really long nozzle and you put these ones on, you can get a very good fitment. And typically with the long nozzles, here's a tip. about tips is to go one size smaller if you have a longer nozzle, because then you'll be able to get it in deeper into your ear canal. Now, if I listen to something and I wanted to control some of the highs, so one of my absolute favorite tips is these JVC Spiral Dot FX10. They are terrific, and what they do is they have this little dot pattern. I don't know if it's a gimmick or it's not a gimmick, because what it does for me is it controls the upper mids. Anything that's a little bit too in your face, I find these control quite well. And again, it's a bit of a shorter tip, so they work better on longer nozzles. Now, these are called the TRNT tips. Again, wide bore. They kind of have a bit of a flare, so when the sound comes out like that too. And they kind of a bit of a pear shape as well. So they might work for you, they might not. And again, a little bit longer, so they work really good for short tips or short stems. Divinus, I just got some of these Divinus velvet tips. I'm actually quite liking. So this is kind of a medium bore. And if you look at the hole, well, I'll take pictures. It's quite small on the where you put it onto the nozzle. So sometimes you do have to fight a bit. Just something to note on that tip. And what else is in here? That Faul H570. So this is kind of one of my new favorite tips. So it's very much like an Osla crystal tip, sticky, not quite as thick on the outside, very comfortable. And when this one goes on, again, it does kind of that bell shape. So that one kind of enhances a bit of the upper mids and treble, right? So this is your journey. So as you get your IEM in, you're playing around with these to kind of get a good fit. And mostly, if you have something that's too bright, you're going to want to knock it down. If it's something you want to enhance the bass, again, you know what to do. And that's a good idea. And you don't have to go cray-cray on tips, but as you get deeper into this journey, it's a good idea to invest in tips, because it is your number one. It will make or break your listening impression. So that is super, super important. So keep your narrow bores and then keep your wide and medium bores separated. And as you get to know these tips and get to know what they do, you will be able to move through faster or pick something faster. So for me, I always have a little carrying case that does have a set of foams in it. It has the JVCs, it has the TRNT tips, it has the Osla, and a pair of Faul, and those WGO7. So a little bit of a selection, and you notice I don't typically have. I would use the foams if I were something that was too bright, or I was trying to relieve pressure. I would use the foams. I don't use foams a lot. Now, second up in this video is sources. So tips are going to be your number one way to sculpt your sound. Number two is going to be your sources. And three, we'll talk cables. And if you're avid, I'm not a believer in cables, then you can skip part number three. But sources are going to be playing a major part. Now, when you start off in your journey, I'm a bit embarrassed. It took me a while to get this video rolling, because for about 10 minutes I was looking for my phone. It's right there. And yeah, anyway. And as you get going into your journey, you're going to want at least a dongle. At least one. And I say that because you don't, even if your phone had a phone out, line out, yes, it can work, and I understand that if that's all you have, then that's great. Start off from that. But a dongle will at least give you more power and definitely increase the sound. Now, all sources don't sound the same. That's for sure. So for me, when I'm starting off with a new IM, I typically I have DAPs now, so I don't typically reach for a dongle unless I'm on the go and I don't want to carry anything. So a couple of the things that I have, and you have to get to know your gear, right? So they do sound. This is a E1 DA SG3. So this uses a ESS 9038 DAC chip. Super clean, super analytical. This is the 2.5 out, USB-C in, so I don't use it that much, and I've got other sources that I do, but I know if I use this and I wanted the absolute cleanest, transparent source, I use this little dongle. I know how that sounds. Now, recently I got in the Do 4X from SimGot, and this is using the CSS 34198. Okay, is their latest chipset from Cirrus Logic. And I have a Shanling UP5 with also ESS chipset in this one. And that's kind of one of my favorite go-tos because it has a little volume control on the side, and I'm all about that. I actually forget what... I'm going to try and pull it out of its case here, which is fighting me. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, to tell you the truth. It's got a death grip on that. Okay, it's staying in its case. But it has another ESS chipset in that one. So I know from my couple of the dongles, and I got some EPZs coming in too, so I'm going to do a little review on some of theirs that are coming in. I got a couple new ones, the TP20 Pro and the TP50. But for these three, I know that the ESS 9038 of this little guy is very analytical, bright. Some people say it has ESS glare, and I kind of understand what they mean by that. And then again, another ES, this one's smoother, more musical over that one for sure. And then there's the Cirrus Logic Do 4, which for me... I know in my DAP selection and my desktop stacks for sources, I know my Geshelli Labs J2 4499EX is incredibly warm and colored. Unlike the other older version, the 4493, that I put some op amps in, I put some Sparkos in there too. That one is it's maybe a little bit colored on the warm side, but not a lot. Very neutral sounding. And then Ibasso DX170, Cirrus Logic again. Shanling M8, very on the warm side. It's my second warmest source. And then the X2O XD05 Pro with ESS and Sparkos in that one. Now, I know from listening to all my devices what their musical signature is, right? ESS, again, powerful, bassy, wide open stage, articulate, neutral, bright. Shanling M8 definitely on the warm, smooth side, and the Ibasso with the Cirrus Logic chips right in the middle. So if I were doing what do I want to pick up? Do I want something warm? Do I want something analytical? Do I want something in the middle? I know Cirrus Logic, and it's the same thing as these dongles, right? UP5, musical, very still clean and analytical, warmer. Slightly warmer and super clean and right in your face. So get to know your sources, and that will also help you sculpt your IM and your listening impressions. Okay, so that was sources number 2. Okay, and as you're, reaching for a set, this is my favorites box. No, that wasn't. That was my cable box. Sorry. Here's my favorite sets. Some in here. Just right now, there's a DTE 900. There is the Simgo 500 LM. There is the Duno Falcon Ultra. There is the T10 from Arty and the Planar. There's my custom CIM T4s from High Senior, which I got to do a review on. Penon Turbo, and my Pula PAO2s, both sets. So that's, and some of my other stuff is out on tour, and then my Twilights are here as well. So now you'll see a cable attached to those, each one of those, because when I go through my journey and when I'm doing my listening impressions, I've got my, now this could change also. And for instance, on the TheAudio Hype 10, I was listening to it with the stock cable. And this was an interesting one. So I'm a cable believer. I don't think they will radically change the sound signature, but it does in a bit. So when you're fine tuning now. And so when I was listening to the X-Duo, X-Duo5 with those, I liked it, but I just found they were missing something. Now, what I found in cables for me, whether you believe it or not, all you'd have to do is pick up a pair of Plunge Audio Unities. And if you are not a cable believer, you will be, right? They're so transparent. You spin on the cable and it will change. I don't know anybody who hasn't listened to those and swapped a cable and went, I get it. That's how open and transparent that I am. So revealing. Now, just talk about my journey for the Hype 10 for a second. Listening to that on the stock cable, and this was the best pairing. And then we had a little video meet call like we do with our group all the time, and just talk about stuff. Overall, how did we all feel about the BQ-EYZ Wind? How did we feel about this? And just to understand each other a bit more. It's quite interesting, actually. So as we're talking about this, we're going, I said, I really like it on the Sparkos and the XDO5. And Kevin said, that's interesting. I liked it on my M9, which is even warmer than the M8. And we asked, why? And so first of all, I think the TheAudio Hype 10 cable holding this IM back for me. So what happens in cables? Cables 101 for me. Okay, pure copper cable. What did I just get? And I'm blessed to have, and cursed to actually have a fetish for cables. I bought thousands of dollars worth. Well, my wife doesn't watch this. And I've also been, recently, I've been getting cables sent to me, sans charge, from Nice HTK, because I was quite interested in their cables and I like their builds. So I have a variety of cables from XINHS, from KB Ear, from Penon, ISN, and I used to exclusively have a whole bunch of Hakugi cables. And since then, when my cable started breaking and I started trying to get warranty through AliExpress, I was given the full Chi-Fi run around where I had to go into disputes and you know, like I bought 8 of this one cable, this fabric wrapped cable, Peaceful Voice, I think it was called. And they all started coming apart, and they all started, well, there was other problems that came in. I mean, they weren't marked left or right. They weren't, and the whole thing would spin around, so you didn't know which was the polarity either. It was a shit show. And I tried to go back and get warranty and service from them, and I got the massive runaround. It's like, you know what? You guys are done. You'll never be featured in any of my videos, and I'll never recommend you at all. So, Hakugi, stay away. Now, that being said, they do make some good cables. But from what I'm getting from Nice HCK, I'm liking their stuff more. So, talk about cables. Now, in your arsenal, you should have a pure copper. This is called the Gray Dragon from Nice HCK. I love it because it's really like, it's called the 1950 Saga. What did I just say? No, 1950 Saga. That's what it's called. And really interesting, just pure copper cable. Now, you also have to get to know your cables, and you don't have to go expensive cables. KB Air make fantastic cables. The cord, the graphene one, make great and good hardware. So you don't have to spend $400 on a cable to get a good cable. $20, $30. But for me, it makes a difference. So make sure in your arsenal you have a good copper cable, pure copper. And for me, what happens is if I get a brighter IM and I want to tone down some got EA 500 LM, the upper mids and treble, I use a pure copper cable because I find it enhances the bass and it doesn't emphasize the treble, or at least if it keeps all of the bass, there's no addedness to that. Next up is graphene cables. My absolute favorite these days. Which one was this one? This one came from EPZ again, in a graphene. It kind of has a bluey tinge to it in a modular cable. It was a great price as well. The KB ear cord as well. But this one is my choice for modular, which works better for me. I really love this thickness of this cable. Now, graphene for me adds a little bit into the mids and more of the upper mids. It adds a little bit of detail for me in metals. Now, silver cables, SPC, silver plated cables, or pure silver cables now start adding stuff into the, for me, again, higher frequencies. I can hear if I wanted to emphasize, here's the impact on the Juizier limpid cable. Again, another fabulous cable, not expensive. So this isn't a promotion for cables here. I'm not trying to do that. I can use a $20 cable on a $3,000 IM, right? I just shot that video and I said I could have used it with the Penon ASOS cable, but honestly, the two sound exactly the same to me. So I'm not going to tell you to go buy a $180 cable when a $25 cable to me sounds exactly the same. Now the Penon fanboys are coming out with bulldozers and pitchforks. So the adding silver into the cable adds an upper frequency emphasis for me. Now, you've also heard probably two other elements. Gold. So if I wanted a gold cable, there's one that I love for dynamic drivers. Now, this is a XIN HS gold and SPC cable. Man, does this add some excellent note weight on the bottom end and warms up the mid-range. So that's what gold for me does in a cable. It adds warmth to the sound signature. And as you get into that, so here's another one. This one came from the guys who are the wholesalers for Penon. It's a store on AliExpress, and like it's labeled Penon, right? It says Penon on it, but you can't find this. Well, yes, you can find this cable. So this cable would be called the ISN G4 cable. So it's gold-plated SPC and silver cable. So adding warmth into the mids, adding emphasis on the highs. So, and it's just ever so slightly. I recently got in another cable from Pula that I'll recommend when it goes on sale. That's like $140. This was a bit of a surprise too, and it just looks like SPC and then SPC and copper, but a bit stiff. It kind of reminds me of the Empire Ears Legend Evo cable that was a bit stiff, but man, did it sound good. This does too. Really clean and great sounding cable. So with the cables and getting to know your cables, this was one of those aforementioned Akuge brand Goldie Booty Pro. I actually don't like the sound of this cable, and it was expensive. I think I paid $180 US for that. Not great. So not only you can pay some money for a cable and it might not do anything or sound good to you. What was the other discovery I found the other day? Oh, this guy. This was an RT called an A5 or an A9. It comes in either a blue or a silver. And again, I probably make people mad in my video reviews for like SimGot, but I hope they don't take it to heart. They sent me this. They sent me their LC7 cable. And when comparing the two, now the LC7 cable was $80, and this is $50 from RT in modular as well. Both are modular. But this one had a higher strand count, and more flexible and thinner, but it sounded just a bit better. So when I did my video review, I said, yeah, I do have a SimGot branded cable, but I'm telling you not to buy it because I'm telling you that I found this cable and it's cheaper and better, right? Of course, when you say that online too, in the forums and chats, I mean, I got guys up in arms going, I don't believe it. You should go to the SimGot cable. And I was like, why? I mean, are you afraid of offending somebody? And so that's for me. I have an arsenal of cables that I know the sound signature of. And then, of course, you got your backup cables as well. And another one that I'll say that it looks like the Penon vocal cable, but it looks exactly like it's the same cable. Comes from that other online AliExpress store for $35 versus $100. Penon asked for the Penon vocal cable. Sometime it's on sale, so $50, but it's still cheaper on that other store with better accessories and ear hooks, right? They always have ear hooks. So cables, get yourself a copper cable, get yourself something with some gold in it, get yourself something with silver or silver SPC, something with a graphene, and the last one I didn't talk about is palladium. Now palladium, this one is IVIPQ, very good value in their cables as well, and it adds a bit of shimmer that I find on the very top end. Now this one is just a copper and palladium So I'm not trying to affect anything in the mid-range. I'm trying to keep it very clean, but I want to add a little bit into the very top end. So that's how mixed metals or metals affects for me and what I found in my journey. So to start from the bottom, copper is going to just keep, not emphasize anything in the mids or highs and keep all your bass. Gold is going to add a little bit of warmth to the sound signature. Silver is going to add some brightness, and SPC is kind of the next step up from copper. So not going to full silver, but just adding a little bit of emphasis on maybe the upper mids and highs. Pure silver I don't really listen to a lot because it really does affect. It's a very clean sound, and I'm just not a fan of that. Graphene adds a little bit of upper mids and highs that I find, and palladium adds the shimmer on the very top end. That's my journey in cables and how I pick a cable. So, for instance, circling back to the Audio Hype 10 and sources and tips and all that kind of jazz. So I ended up settling on the Divinus Velvet tips because they had a very good fit with this nozzle in my ears, wide bore, and if we look in, I mean, you can see right straight down into the nozzle and the grill. So fit great, worked for this IM, and then I was playing with sources, and as we were talking, when Kevin said he liked the warmth of this, I thought, well, with that warmth and this stock cable, it wasn't bringing out the effects that I was looking for. It was missing something on the upper mids and top end. So then I started, since I had my tips in place, I was then starting to play with cables. And then I found this nice gray dragon. So very interesting cable as well. Copper, SPC, and a different kind of silver plating on it. And really well worked well with this IM. And then I went back to analytical source, and it was a bit too much. No, it was okay, but it wasn't the same as the stock cable on that source. Then I also tried this nice HCK. What was this thing called? The not Dual God. Oh my gosh, Dragon Scale. Thank you very much. Wow. And that too much. It whatever the silver content of this, it added too much, and you can see it. It's on my Penon Quattro. Works great to bring out the top end on that. So it's kind of interesting that you can sculpt just a little bit with your thing. So I know what these tips do. They're great for that. Kind of it is good for bass as well. But with this cable, added the brightness back in, and then the warmth of the source, and together that makes a really good combination for me for that IM. So that's how I'll do when I do the review for the Hype 10. It will be exactly that. So it'll be this is how I got to this journey. I'm using Divinus Velvet tips. I'm using the not stock cock cable. Shit, I'm gonna have to put a warning on that one too. And then I chose this cable for my sound. So you might think me silly. I don't know. But I spend that much time trying to get the best out of this IM, and you'll notice in my reviews, I like, and sometimes I forget to mention what I use for tips, what I used for cable, because all those are going to affect your sound signature. Your ear tips are number one, your sources are number two, your cables to a much lesser degree, number three. And as you spend time on your journey, you will be able to fine tune and hone. So to summarize, get yourself when you can, spend your money not on cables. Don't spend your money on sources first. Spend some money on ear tips. Once you have that down, move into some sources, whether you do dongles. And remember, for me and for what the general consensus is ESS is brighter. AKM is the typically adds a bit of warmth to it, and it depends on the application used inside of the source. That's a big important one. You can't rely just on the chip changing the sound signature. How it's used in the device makes probably more of a difference than anything else. Like the Dishelli J2 4493 is not very warm, just maybe a hint, where the 4499 is really warm. So the application, right? Not so much the chip, I would say, the whole thing. Cirrus Logic is your middle child. Pretty good to go to, right? So just like I recommended for DAPs right now, the Ibasso DX170 is a very safe choice. And I've had the whole gamut of Hibby and all that happy jazz. Anyway, it's a long one. I'm sorry. I hope you learned something. I hope I've shared something that useful to you. And that's it for now until I can do some more on some IM. I'm out for now.